Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Finneran's Wake. I am, with unwavering devotion to the cause of great conversation, your faithful friend and humble host, Daniel Finneran. Continuing a trend we've established here on Finneran's Wake, I'm joined today by a man with whom I fear I'm quite undeserving to be speaking. Undeserving, to be sure, though not totally unprepared. For the past couple of months, I've had the absolute pleasure of watching, laughing at, and learning about my distinguished and immensely talented guest, Neema Naz. As it happens, the enjoyment that I've derived from Neema's uproarious content isn't unique to me. To his 260,000 Instagram followers and his 140,000 YouTube subscribers, Neema is a daily fixture and an endless source of humor and joy. He's an impersonator par excellence, an actor, writer, stand-up comedian, and the creator of the Estupid Club and NeemaNazTV. He's just completed a wildly successful tour of the US with stops in Philadelphia, New York City, Dallas, Los Angeles, and finally San Francisco. He continues on with a tour of his native Canada. I can say that we here in Florida eagerly await the announcement of your next countrywide tour with hopes of its making a stop down here. Neema, thank you so very much for agreeing to join me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Daniel. That was a stellar intro. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I was working on it for weeks in advance of this conversation.
Love it.
So I want to get right into it. Your mother, with whom your more devout fans are surely well acquainted, features prominently and quite endearingly in your videos. She is the second half, and some might even say the better half, of your dancing duo, to which your Instagram followers are treated. The warmth of your relationship and the affection you have for her, and she for you, is palpable through the screen. Can you describe your relationship with her and tell us in what ways has she influenced you and your comedy?
Yeah, so I mean, we're very close. It's always been that way, and I feel like I'm an extension of her in a way in terms of my humor because I get my humor from somewhere, obviously, and my dad's also funny, but my mom is more so in line with how goofy I am. Yeah, and at first when I was starting to do comedy and I was making videos, I never really thought to ever put her in my videos. But then I saw other people pranking their own moms and dads, and I was like, yo, let me just try this on my mom. And if anyone's gonna have a good sense of humor about it, it would be her. And the first couple of times I pranked her on my YouTube channel years ago, she obviously she was like upset or like pissed off during the filming, but then afterwards she'd be like, oh, like what are people saying, or like like don't do that shit again. But really though, she would be like intrigued on like what the audience is saying, or how many views it's getting, or blah blah blah. And then eventually get to a point now, fast forward like 8 years pretty much, now that we're making regular videos together, sometimes she directs the videos. She's like, okay, we should do this, we should do that. Okay, if I say this first, then you say that, it'll be funny. And then so that's kind of like the the vibe that we've gotten to up until this point, and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, the day on which you were born and the day on which she was born are the same.
Yeah, we have the same birthday. Yeah, November 30th.
Yeah, so do you think there's some sort of I don't know, a cosmic, beyond just a maternal link, but some sort of a cosmic link that that brings you even closer together?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel like if what we look like doesn't already determine how close we are, then the birthdays are another indicator for sure. Because I feel like we're exactly the same person, just in two different bodies and two different eras of the world. And yeah, like everyone calls us twins, and in terms of our looks, but also sense of humor and the way we talk and the way we also present ourselves in front of people.
Yeah, it's fascinating how I think sons and their mothers especially tend to bear a strong resemblance. I know I certainly do with my mother. All of my features seem to have been derived from hers,
Yeah.
and a lot of our mannerisms as well. I think in some instances that can cause a little bit of tension, right?
Yeah.
People so similar, living together for so long, there
Yeah.
can be some tension there. But it seems like you two have just a beautiful relationship that is really, like I said, palpable through the screen every time the two of you are together. Now,
Yeah,
I
for sure.
understand, is she originally from Persia? Is she a first generation immigrant to the
Yeah,
West?
yeah, yeah, for sure. So my parents both they were born and raised in Iran, and they obviously immigrated to Canada, almost, yeah, pretty much exactly 32 years, up until a couple weeks ago. Um, and yeah, so they're originally from there. My brother was also born there when he was, and then they moved here pretty much when he was like 3 or 4, and then they had me in Canada, and then yeah, yeah.
I see. Now, was it a consequence of the political upheaval in Iran around that time in the early '80s or around the '90s?
Yeah, I think it was actually just before the revolution happened, or just as it was happening, and they just like it was there were a lot of restrictions coming down, and the government was getting really tight on things you could and couldn't do, and then they're just like, yo, we got to get out of here because it's like it's a slippery slope. So then yeah, they got out pretty much at the perfect time.
Yeah. And I wonder if that sort of impending sense of repression and censorship and authoritarianism might contribute in some ways to the way in which you express yourself and your mother encourages you to express yourself. Of course, you weren't there in Iran during
Right.
that time and don't really have a memory of it, but I'm sure there's a cultural memory.
Hmm. Yeah, like it's definitely true because they came here for the freedom of expressing themselves and living a better life, and that's what they gave me, obviously, right? So I feel like I have almost a duty to go above and beyond and really go 100% in the craft I have, which is comedy and acting, to express myself as much as possible, pretty much to make up for all the you know things that they couldn't do back home.
Mm.
And so it's almost like a nod to like it's almost like a respect thing for them, in a way to kind of like show them that, okay, like I'm taking advantage of what we have here.
Yeah, what we have and hopefully we'll continue to have. And
Yeah, hopefully.
are you at all concerned about the hostility toward free speech that we're kind of witnessing both here in America, where I am, and in Canada,
Mhm.
where you are?
Yeah, I mean, like in Canada, it's gotten pretty wild. There's a lot of censorship happening. There's a lot of bills being secretly passed that it doesn't favor people like me who are literally like my job is to like use words to express myself in funny ways. Especially with social media, having a social media following, and like I've been restricted so many times already in the past few years, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. And I don't know. I feel like at some point there's going to be a time where people are just the government or whoever is going to control what people can and can't say, to a T. And I don't know, either people are going to riot or social media is gonna die or whatever. Something's gonna happen that's so extreme that people are just gonna like lose their shit because it's been a while now that I've been getting censored online, and it's hard because they're like pretty much stopping you from being yourself
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
to the full length. But
But you
yeah,
don't think we're quite there yet?
no, I mean, like, yes and no. I mean, yeah, obviously it's better than most countries, I'd say, in the world, but you know, it could always be better, but I feel like, in America, I think some parts are better because they take their freedom way more seriously, I think, than over here in Canada. Canada, people are just, little, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but
Of course
um,
you are.
they're a little,
Express yourself.
they're little pussies over here, little bitches, and they kind of like they just conform to what anyone tells them to do, and they don't fight back. In
Yeah.
America, at least they fight back. So yeah, I don't know.
No, that's very well put, and I'm very interested to know your political opinions because your approach to comedy, so far as I can tell, is maybe deliberately apolitical. And I wonder if that is deliberate, or if everybody has the certain stream in which he wants to swim. If it's a more physical comedy, an observational comedy, or more political, incisive comedy. I understand you to be swimming in the second of those two streams, a more observational comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that in time, especially as things change politically, both in Canada and in the West generally, do you think that you'll maybe jump into the other stream and do a little bit more political comedy as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was never a favorite of mine to go into the political comedy, to be honest. One, because I just I try to stay away from all that stuff, so I don't like create different sides, and sway people in a certain direction on purpose. I more so just want to express myself in my comedy with how I genuinely am as a person in my real life, and be as authentic as possible. And in my real life, I'm not a political person, to be honest. I don't really pay attention to that stuff as much. I mean, that's not to say that in the future, when I grow older and I know I grow more wise, and I do more research and I read more things, that eventually I might take up an interest in politics, and also incorporating politics into my comedy. I love comedians like Trevor Noah, Jon Stewart, those guys, The Daily Show, and it's obviously political stuff, but it's not something that I am comfortable doing yet. Like you said, I'm very observational, and I like to imitate life, and just try to be funny in the most authentic and real way that I know possible. And then if it happens to be political, then it's political. If it's not, then it's not. I don't really pay attention to what I want to do deliberately. I just kind of do it, and then whatever happens from there.
Yeah, and I think that spontaneity has served you well. Although, producing content at the frequency with which you do does demand quite a little bit of planning. I mean, a lot of your sketches are very well thought out, very clever, but then others are just you filming yourself in your bedroom or what have you, and just enacting these different personalities, let's say. But let me ask you, when did you realize that you were funny? And do you perhaps attribute this prodigious sense of humor to being the youngest in a family of four?
Yeah, I think automatically the youngest sibling is always the funniest. The youngest child is always the funniest, because they always. I mean, I got pampered a lot more than my brother did, and I got away with most things that he didn't. And I don't know. I just feel like, but at the same time, when you get babied so much, you lack a lot of things that that you can eventually help yourself with in the future. The discipline was a big thing I had to learn on my own growing up, and there comes a lot of it's not that it's trauma, but you learn to laugh your way through the things that you don't really understand, or that's not working out in your favor. And so I don't know. I feel like as a kid, I just naturally was a very goofy kid, and I like to make people laugh. Every time I talk to my friends, my family, or whoever I'm with, I always like to go for the joke and for the laugh. And I've been that way since I was a little kid, like I mentioned. So I always kind of knew I had that in me, but it really clicked for me when I was 7 or 8, when we had family parties at my house or other people's houses. My parents or their friends would make me go up in front of all of them and try to make them laugh, because they knew I was that kind of kid to try to go for a laugh, whether it's dancing, singing, making fun of my dad, my mom, whatever. I would just do it, and without even thinking about it.
So you had no inhibitions to do so. You had no reservations. You boldly stepped up there and performed at that young age.
Yeah, I mean, I never even thought about it that way. That I never had stage fright. It never was sensitive about what people thought. I don't know. I just kind of fuck it. Let me.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can make them laugh.
And to this day, does that fearlessness persist with you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's just who I am. Anywhere I go, it doesn't matter. I don't even have to know you. I could be in line at a grocery store, and if I see something funny, I'll mention it out loud, or I'll say something to the cashier or whatever. I don't care. I'll just do it, and it literally means nothing to me. It makes me happy doing it, but it doesn't I don't attach anything to it. You know what I'm saying? Even if a joke bombs and someone thinks I'm crazy. I'll laugh at it after, like whatever, like it doesn't matter.
Does your brother share that same kind of fearlessness, or is he a little bit more reserved?
No, he's a little more reserved for sure. He's very funny himself too, but like within certain close circumstances, obviously within his friends or in a group of people that he knows, but or like he's not really like as out there as I am. Like I'm kind of like fearless and careless sometimes, and like I'll just say random shit in public that usually people wouldn't say or do. But because they think it's embarrassing or it's weird, like I don't feel that way. I just say it. So that's why he's the manager and I'm the comedian. So
Yeah, so I want to talk about that just for a moment. So Omid, your brother, with whom I had the pleasure of corresponding the past couple of weeks,
mhm.
he's involved in your life and, of course, in your work, as you just
Yeah,
mentioned. So, aside from probably being a wise voice in your head, um, either encouraging you to do something or discouraging you from doing other things, he presides over the management of the Neema Naz brand. So
mhm.
tell me a little bit about that relationship as pertains to your life as brothers and your work. Is there ever any tension, or does it ever risk the integrity of your relationship, being that you're so intimately involved in this enterprise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, naturally, there's pros and cons to both, right? The pros of having your older brother as your manager that and working with you day to day is that it's someone you can trust deeply, blindly trust, actually. You get along in many different ways. You can like open up about certain things you otherwise wouldn't be able to open up to with other people. And that person has their best interest in you, and that's the key ingredient in all of this, in my opinion. Um, those are all great things, but the downside sometimes is, yeah, when you're too close, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to separate the business with personal, right? And so that's why we plan so much, and we have these coaching sessions with our other team member Cyrus, who's my producer and editor now for the past like year or so. And we have these weekly meetings where we kind of like we hash out things that maybe need that we need to touch on to improve or to step back on or whatever it is, right? So what we've learned is that like the more transparent we are, the more effectively we communicate with each other, the less we run into those issues and those problems. There has been times where the communication was lacking, and either I screwed up on something or he did, and then like ends up in like tension, and then we have this massive argument or whatever. But then eventually we understand that we're here for a bigger picture, and we end up obviously coming together and moving past it. But that's this isn't the this isn't that's just the game. To be honest, you just have to keep on communicating and understanding each other's interests and boundaries, and then that's how you grow and become successful together.
Yeah, and it seems as though you guys have a very easy way of reconciling after any disagreements. And of course, as an audience, as a viewer, those things will always be invisible to us, so we don't
Yeah,
understand and appreciate everything that's going on behind the scenes. We're simply absorbing the
yeah,
wonderful content that you're putting out without a proper appreciation, I think, for
yeah,
everything that's going on behind the scenes.
yeah, 100%.
So is it it's interesting though. It's almost like there's a mutually beneficial relationship, you being kind of the talent, he being the management. um, is it your intention with sort of the Neema Naz brand to become something of a larger entity? Do you want to begin you know absorbing other comedians into your sphere and working on the development of their careers the same way sort of you rose up independently?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, someone I really look up to is Adam Sandler. Actually, he's not my favorite comedian, but he's one of my favorite artists, producers, whatever you want to call it, because he's built that atmosphere and that ecosystem for years, right? Like he has the same people in the movies every single time. David Spade, Rob Schneider. I can't remember the other guys' names, but he has the main core 5 or 6 actors, friends who are always in the same movies together, and they all rose up together and
Mm.
became really successful. Seth Rogen, same thing, has this little crew that he came up with and made movies with. That's kind of like what I want to do, and eventually that is our plan to have my brother and our team, that are working on the back end to expand and kind of represent other comedians like myself. But right now, our goal is to make me into that Adam Sandler first. And then, we have our comedians that we work with all the time, we collab with. And then when I've made it to, when I've gotten to that point where, we thought, okay, we've done enough for Neema, then we can slowly start to bring on other comedians and actors that we want to represent and bring on into the ecosystem. So
So no plan to sell yourself out, sever all connections, and move away and
no, no,
det-
definitely not, man. Because
detach from orbit.
no,
No,
that's
no,
terrible. That's
no. That's a
terrible.
very laudable, very honorable approach, and I see that. Um, Given that fraternal relationship that you have and this tight group of friends, and I guess you could call them coworkers, with
Yeah,
whom you often collaborate, I can see that trajectory, and I think that it'll be immensely successful. You're right,
yeah,
and you're
100%.
also very modest. You understand that that your pedigree is rising very quickly and deservedly, but the hope is that with your flourishing, others will be the beneficiaries as well, and they'll carry on with your tailwind and hopefully achieve the same status.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think one thing that I'm super against is to like think that you can make it on your own and get to the top on your own. One, because I'm not afraid to ask for help or get help, and two, it's much more sweet being able to say you made it with your friends and not just yourself but other people. And I think there's something very noble about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned Adam Sandler as perhaps someone to whom you look up as a businessman in this industry.
Yeah.
But after whom would you say do you model your comedic routine?
Mhm. Yeah, so I have a few of my favorite comedians. Originally, obviously, Russell Peters was my first inspiration into comedy because I feel like my style is very similar to his, and I actually had the pleasure of meeting him and opening up for him a couple times last summer, and that was a full circle moment for me, to be honest, and everyone back home because we're also from the same area back home, which is pretty cool. And he was one of the first people I saw on TV that was like, oh wow, this immigrant fucking brown dude is making jokes about other races on stage and he's getting laughs and he's killing it. And then then he blew up, and then for years, man, even till now, me, my friends, my brother, my family, everybody, we still quote some of the jokes that he used to tell like 20 years ago, right? So he was definitely one of the first ones for me. But now I'm at a point where I really love a lot of comedians, especially down in New York. I love Andrew Schultz. Andrew Schultz is one of my favorite comedians right now. I actually think I see a lot of myself in him. Obviously, he's much more polished and experienced than I am, but I feel like eventually that's kind of the style I want to go for. Kevin Hart is also one of my favorites. Kevin Hart is a mogul, in my opinion. I also want to model after him and what he's done in terms of his business. And because he's not just a comedian, he's Kevin Hart, the actor, the producer, the director, the writer, the businessman, the Nike athlete. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to do all that. So yeah,
Yeah, there's a new age of comedian slash businessman, and maybe this is general across sports, across music, across comedy. Where I don't know when it began exactly, but in the past, you would have this great comedian like George Carlin, say, and he would be the epitome of comedy, but you wouldn't know him as a producer and a director and
yeah,
podcast didn't exist at the time, but a
hmm
podcast host and doing
yeah,
all these sort of ancillary adventures and projects. But
yeah,
that's changed, I think, for the better, much for
yeah,
the better. So
definitely.
let me ask you: have you any training as an actor?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I went to school for comedy and acting. So it was a 2-year program at this college in my hometown, and after that, I took a couple acting courses and stuff. But I'm more of a comedian than I am an actor. But I feel like I also love acting just as much. And eventually, I want to pursue either whether it's serious acting or comedic acting. Either way, I feel like I'm definitely put out to do all of it. So
Yeah, I think you're certainly well suited for that. Now, I ask because I think the sharpest comedic arrow in your quiver is your ability to impersonate. Now, the scope of your impressions is extraordinarily wide. Chefs, athletes, musicians, entire ethnicities fall within your domain. So some of my favorites include Giannis ordering Chipotle. You just released that a couple days ago. With hilarious. DJ Khaled celebrating Christmas. Gordon Ramsay, Guy Fieri.
Yeah.
So, and then of course your impressions of Greeks, Italians,
all
Indians,
the original characters,
Nigerians, Cubans. They're all flawless. So this ability to impersonate, is it a result of your having trained as an actor, or just having observed humankind?
Yeah, I think it's more so the latter, because I grew up in Toronto, Canada, which is one of the most diverse cities in the world. It's a melting pot of cultures, and my group of friends growing up were all Chinese, Indian, like Persian, Arab, white, Guyanese, whatever you name it. Like I had friends from all over, right? So, and to this day, I'm still friends with them. So, I always joke like my group of friends is the United Nations. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got them all, and so growing up, I would always go to their houses, meet their parents, meet their families, eat their food and listen to their music, and I immersed myself into their cultures early on, and that's why I feel like kind of branded me as the type of comedian I am today, is because I learned from all these different people how they live their lives and what their mannerisms are and how they speak and their accents and whatever, right? And I just like naturally, that's just how my brain works, where I observe the minor details in people, and I don't know, I love to imitate them. I love to make jokes about them, because that's just how I grew up, and that's how my group of friends are, and that's how I am. So it's definitely an observation of humans in general, and naturally just bring it out.
Yeah, and you have an intuitive, inborn skill to be able to do this. You're like a chameleon. When I first saw you, and I think this is something about which you joke, I had no idea what your ancestry was. Yeah, and I live in southern Florida, and I sometimes get that as well. And people think I'm Argentinian or Italian.
Yeah,
so I get that. Yeah, and it's always interesting to me. But are you ever accused of cultural insensitivity? Now, given that, as you call it, I think your racial ambiguity, perhaps you're immune to those charges. But are you ever subjected to them? And if so, how do you respond?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. Like it's always been like that, though. Whether it's I'm getting censored by the apps itself or the people, I don't know. People always think something I'm doing is inappropriate, or it's cultural appropriation, or whatever the fuck they think. But in my eyes, I don't see it that way, because my intention is always good. My intention is to make people laugh and represent different cultures, and just represent what life is to me, and from my own experience, from my own eyes. I'm bringing that to light. So, and sometimes in comedy, man, whether it's on video or on stage, you're gonna say things or do things that might not fly, but you won't know until you try it. And that's the whole beauty of what I do, is like, if you're not gonna experiment, then you're never gonna learn, you're never gonna grow, you're never gonna get better. And I don't believe in not trying shit that is either out of your comfort zone or uncomfortable, for whether it's for you or other people. So yeah, I mean, every day I get people calling me racist, bigot, extreme fucking, I don't know, misogynist, whatever bullshit. But it's truly not who I am, and it's not my intention to be that way.
Yeah. And none of those charges penetrate you. You seem to have a pretty thick skin.
I mean, yeah, literally, physically, and metaphorically, as I have a thick skin, exactly. So, but that's the game, though. This is the territory that comes with what I do, and I understand that. And when I first dropped out of school to pursue all this, I knew that was going to happen coming into it. So, it's just about pushing through and having the right people in your circles to kind of like, to humble you and also ground you, to understand what's really going on, and to never let go of your purpose and your intention of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised in some ways by your humility, by your modesty. Now, I don't mean to say that I expected you to be some sort of a
cocky, arrogant
figure, But
No.
I will say that there's an emotion to which I'm occasionally susceptible, and that's envy. Now, I often will watch an interviewer or a public figure who has a salary worth millions of dollars or a viewership of millions of individuals, and think, that's someone than whom I'm better, for instance.
Yeah.
Now, as someone still early in his career, you've garnered some success, but you're still early in your career.
Yeah.
Do you ever grapple with envy? Do you look at other comedians, either well established on network television or, like a Saturday Night Live, or even up and coming in the stand-up scene, and think like, this is just someone than whom I'm much funnier, much better, much more skillful?
Yeah.
And if that emotion does kind of creep up, how do you grapple with it? Do you repress it? Do you let it be inspiration for you? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, I think it's natural for a comedian to be jealous of everybody and anybody. Over time, though, it like dies down more and more when you start to, start seeing success of your own. And for me personally, I think different comedians are different. They have different mindsets. I personally think that I've grown a much better growth mindset over the years, and I have a wider scope of like what life is all about. And so I feel like I've gotten way less, envious of people or jealous of them, obviously, because I realize that there's one, room for everyone to eat, and two, everyone's different. Like everyone has their path, and I'm not trying to force anything of my own path to go in a certain direction that might be going well for someone else right now. I also believe that you should definitely be real with yourself and not lie to yourself, and understand that maybe this person is at the place that you want to be because one, they've been at it longer, but also they work harder than you. And it's not even about me being envious. It's more so being kind of like kind of annoyed and pissed at myself for not working harder, because I understand that, yeah, if I did work as hard as this person, I could also get there, but I'm just not there yet. And so I have to almost like swallow that pride and be like, okay, like my talent can get you so far, but your skills and your work ethic will get you farther. And that's what I'm currently, on that wave right now. And so, yeah, it's more so just about how what the things I can control and not the things I can't.
Yeah, I imagine comedians are especially skillful at swallowing pride. I can't think of a group of entertainers who have to do that more frequently,
Yeah.
and in larger amounts.
You gotta eat shit like crazy, bro, before you get good. You gotta take the L's. You gotta take the hits, man.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
keep
yeah.
going. It's to keep going. You can't give up.
Yeah. So, aside from your undeniable talent as a comedian, another reason I think why fans are drawn to you is your candor, your openness. There seems to be nothing about yourself about which you won't very readily talk. So you've been very honest about your weight and your physical health. And I went back, and at the beginning of the year, you posted a video documenting your weigh-in. Now, you look excellent. You look great just, through the computer screen.
Thanks.
But the number on the scale at that time obviously displeased you. You embarked upon a 100-day challenge to address that and to change that. Can you give us an update? How has that been for you, and what are the results?
Yeah, man. My whole life I've struggled with my weight and like food addiction and stuff like that. And I'm not afraid to. I'll be open about it, obviously, because it's always gotten in the way of other things I want to do in my life, especially now that I do comedy full time and like I'm traveling more. I've in the past like year or so, I've really noticed a lot of obstacles in the way because of my weight. That like at some point I was like, yo, I gotta fucking do something about this now while I'm still young before it gets too late. And it's gonna be harder for me to lose the weight and also to maintain it. Because I'm only 28 years old right now.
Yeah,
right? So,
let me interrupt. Do you worry that while beneficial for your health, it could be detrimental to your brand? I always wonder this. Think of Chris Farley, for instance, and he has that iconic bit with Patrick Swayze when he did the Chippendales dancer. And if a fit Chris Farley were to do that bit, yeah, it would be meaningless. Right. Now, of course, he had other issues, drug addiction.
Right, for
He
sure.
had other issues.
Yeah.
But do you ever grapple with that? On the one end, it being better, I suppose, to be fitter, but on the other end, it being a great asset to your comedy. Like when you do David Joggins, I mean, it's uproarious. I mean, it's so funny.
Thanks.
But how do you kind of reconcile those two thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, these are the things that we always talk about, like my group, my team, and everything like that all the time. Is like I always had to fight this idea of like, man, I've had these thoughts all the time of, if I lose the weight, like, am I gonna lose my funny? And I literally have a joke about that on stage about like my friends, like, yo, man, like, just don't lose the weight, man. You're gonna lose your funny. Like I'm, it's a ridiculous thought to have, but I've had those thoughts many times. But at the same time, I realized if I'm not 100% as a human being and I can't thrive, then how am I going to thrive as a comedian? So, at some point, it's okay to like kind of fall back on like the basic, easy things to joke about, when you're first starting comedy with like, self-deprecating humor about, for me, my weight or my looks or whatever. At first, it's funny, it's cool. But then after a while, it becomes a little hacky and, it's like, okay, what's next? Like, what else do you have? So I feel like I'm naturally at that point now where I'm like, I don't want to be the fat guy anymore. I don't want to be labeled as a fat guy. I don't want to have this a part of my brand, because I don't care how funny it is. Like, if I don't feel good on the inside, I'm not even gonna want to do comedy. So what's the point, right? So there's a lot of sacrifice to be made. And I truly believe that even if I do lose a lot of weight and I actually become fit, which I want to do and I will, like there's another, maybe there's another avenue for me, a different path, or my brand could change, it could evolve, it could be modified, and people will still be on board. Maybe some people will be like, fuck this guy, and new people will be like, oh, I love this guy, right? So I feel like there's nothing wrong with taking care of your health. I think health is the number one priority. Health is wealth, man. Like as cliche as it sounds, it's true. Like I mentioned earlier, there's always been obstacles in the way, but I'm sick and tired of being the fat guy, and I want to change the scope and be like, oh, I'm a fit guy in training, and so that's more so the way I want to see it, and I know I'll get funnier in different ways because maybe it will force me to become more political because I won't have to make fun of my own size or weight. I'll start to learn new things, right? So that's more so the way I see it.
Yeah, no, that's really revealing what you said, and you're absolutely right. One can only laugh at oneself so much. You need another level of sophistication to go beyond that and to
go deeper. You got to go deeper.
Right,
you have to add more layers because after a
while
it gets old.
You can rely on a cheap laugh because of whatever facial feature or weight or what have you.
Yeah, which it's after a while, if you want to be a professional comedian, if you want to be the best, then you can be making those same jokes all the time, So
So appended to the emails that I received from your brother and the management team is the following quote: "Fear regret more than failure." Now, is this a quote by which you live? Is this something very important to you, or?
Yeah, well, that's actually my brother's quote that he lives by for sure. But I agree with the same sentiment. Honestly, I totally agree. If like I said earlier, like if you're not going to try things, then like how are you going to ever learn, or how are you going to know that you like it or not? So I'd rather just do something and fail than to like not do it and then wonder what if. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And psychological studies have kind of proven that we.
Yeah.
I was just reading a book, and I'll mention this just briefly, but they talked about acts of commission and acts of omission, things that you do or don't do, action and inaction. And we tend to regret over the long term the things that we did not do. Whereas over the short term, we might regret the things that we did do.
Yeah.
I think that longer term regret is sharper. It's more painful. And so I think living by a creed such as that, wanting not to fear regret is apt, especially for someone in entertainment. So we're coming right up to the end of our time allotment. I just wanted to ask you one more thing, and I want you to describe to me and to our listeners the way it feels to finally see your name in lights up on a marquee and to look at a queue of people eagerly waiting to watch you paying money to watch you up on stage to perform the routines on which you've been working for months or even years.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
That feels amazing, honestly. It's one of the best feelings I've ever had in my career. It's moments that I've dreamed about my whole life, my whole career, to have my name up in lights and on the marquee, and the fact that there's people waiting in queue, like you mentioned, just to see me live in person do jokes that I think are funny. Is such a crazy idea that I've made a reality, and honestly, I'm super grateful for it, and I wouldn't want to do anything else in my life than to do the things I'm doing right now on a higher level. So I'm only going up and up from here, and more of my name on the marquees.
Absolutely. That's why I'm so glad to have had the opportunity to talk to you now before you're too big and completely inaccessible to the little people like me.
No. Don't worry, I'll never be too big. I'll be too small on my physical size, but
exactly.
my mind will still be here,
Exactly. I can't wait to see that, both your success and the end of your fitness journey. Well, if it ever ends.
Well, it's an ongoing, it's a forever journey. So
yeah. I agree.
Next time you see me, I'll be jacked. Don't worry.
I expect that you'll be doing this shirtless, but only with with your
shirtless with a chain on. That's it. And I'll rub olive oil on my chest too, like a Greek god.
Naturally, like a Greek, like any good Greek would do.
like Stelios.
Oh boy, we're going to be driving all the puck. What is it? The puck bunnies.
Yeah, all the puck bunnies, all the fucking brodies. You already know, pal. That's it.
Well, Neema, you've been so generous with your time. I wish we could go on even longer, and perhaps another time we will collaborate again.
Sure, man. Definitely.
But I hardly need to ask, but where can we find you if we want to absorb more Neema content?
Yeah, in my mom's basement. That's definitely a place you can see me. But no, I'm all over social media at Neema Naz on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. Yeah, I'm all over. I'm about to take over, baby.
That's right. And of course, for what it's worth, I'll include links to all of these well-attended social media sites in the show notes below. Do you have any parting thoughts before we leave?
Yeah. One, what is your background?
The background? The bookshelf?
No. No, of you yourself. Your racially ambiguous ass.
Racially ambiguous. Do you want to know that part? The racially ambiguous part?
Your racial background. Yeah, what's your
my mother, whom I look very much like, she is Russian Jewish. So you and I, Iranian and a Russian Jewish.
Wow.
Shouldn't get along that well, but
I know, right?
But so she's Russian Jew. My father is Irish German, so that's my last name, Finneran. So that's
just white. Yeah, just white.
White. if you really want to whittle it down, yeah. No, nice. But so that's all.
That's cool, man. And also, one last thing I like to say is, I like how sophisticated you are. In your speech. And your whole demeanor is very sophisticated. So I don't know if you're trying to do that or you actually are like that, but I definitely keep that up. It's cool.
Well, I've never been to acting school, so this is pretty much natural.
I could see you on fucking CNN, Bloomberg talks and shit. Like
yeah.
You look like one of those those analysts. You should be on the news.
Well, if only I had a mustache like yours.
Nah, I look like a fucking pedo with this.
No, I do have to ask you though, as someone who also has worn his hair quite long.
Yeah,
what's it like with the drastic alteration from the long
to
the clean look?
It's weird, but it's a new look. Fuck it, man. Sometimes you gotta change it up. I'll go back to long hair soon, though.
Do you prefer it? Do you prefer the short hair, or do you find yourself doing the phantom pullback where
yeah. For now, it's fine. I gotta obviously style it better, but it was always annoying trying to upkeep the long hair. So it's a nice little break for now.
Yeah. Well, you wore it well, but I guess going into summer it'll be a nice nice and cool for you.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, Neema, again, thank you so much. I really do hope to talk again.
100%, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And to everyone out there, fare thee well from Finneran's Wake.